Happy Friday, everybody. How's it going? Welcome back to another Photoshop Daily Creative Challenge. I am your host, Jesus Ramirez. How's it going? As usual, let me know in the chat if you can hear me. It's good to see a lot of familiar faces. First of all, thanks for helping out, Sam. Good to see you in the chat. How's it going, everybody? Yeah, let me know where you're watching from. I'm in the beautiful San Francisco Bay Area. And yes, Sean, it is the ABC crew. Thank you or the ABC, Adobe Banana crew. Thanks for the name there, Sean. That was all thanks to you. How are you guys doing? Good to see you. Happy Friday again. Welcome, Jesus, to the Banana Anna. Thank you so much, Emma. Yeah, so today, unfortunately, is the last Photoshop Daily Creative Challenge that I'll be hosting for the year, I think. I don't think I'm doing any more this year. So hopefully this will be a fun and entertaining, and you learn a lot in my last Photoshop Daily Creative Challenge of the year. First of all, before we get started, I would like to mention, and let me switch over to my screen so that you could see it. I would like for you guys to come into behance.net/challenge/Photoshop and make sure that you scroll all the way down to the very end so that you can download the photos that I'm going to use in today's stream, editing with presets. We're going to work in Adobe Photoshop Lightroom once again using presets. So the whole topic of this stream is what are presets, how you can use them, and how we can create them. Let me see if there's any questions in the chat. Cool. Yeah, no questions in the chat. Cool. Awesome. And it looks like you guys can hear me okay, so that's great. I'm going to give you guys a second to download the photos. You don't have to download them if you don't want to. You can use any photos that you like. I've included 3 images just so that you can have something to play with. But again, for today's stream, any photo will work just fine. And while I'm waiting for you guys to download that photo or those photos, I would like to mention that you could also go into Discord. You can click on the link here on community chat and make sure that you head over to Discord, and right up above my head here you should see a current challenge tab. Make sure that you go in there and submit your work. As you can see, people have been submitting the different challenges we've done throughout the last 2 weeks, including the colorization challenge, which was super fun. This one was the color grading challenge we did yesterday. So yeah, make sure that you come in there and check it out. Cool. So by now, I hope that you guys have had time to download those images. And let me bring up Lightroom. So this is Adobe Lightroom, not to be confused with Lightroom Classic, although everything I'm doing in today's stream could also be applied to Lightroom Classic and Photoshop's Camera Raw. You could also do presets in Camera Raw. And these are the 3 images that I provided to you guys. You can download them and work with these or use your own, like I said before. And I'm going to select the middle photo. I mean, it doesn't really matter which one you use. And what I'm going to do first is talk about what a preset is, and then we're going to create a preset. So in Photoshop or in Lightroom or Lightroom Classic, you have these controls. By the way, these controls are found in the Camera Raw filter inside of Photoshop. They're organized a little bit differently, but they're all basically there. And as you can see, we have all these different sliders and controls that allow you to adjust different areas of a photo. For example, I like the way that Lightroom organizes the panels much better than Photoshop, to be honest. And I like how they organize them by light, color, effects, detail, and optics. What is light? Basically anything that has to do with the brightness of the photo. What is color? Well, basically anything that has to do with the color of the photo, including the temperature, the vibrance and saturation, the color mixture, and the color grading, which we talked about yesterday, which is one of the new features in Photoshop 2021 and the new versions of Lightroom as well. And let's just start by making one simple adjustment. In this case, we can, for example, bring the shadows back a little bit so that we can darken up the image just a little bit. So what we did there is just make an adjustment, right? So what a preset allows you to do is look at all the different sliders and controls, and any adjustments that you make, Photoshop, or in this case Lightroom, will remember it, and you can apply it to a different image at a later point. The name is preset. In other words, a presetted location of any one of these sliders or checkboxes in some cases. So a presetted location of an option. That's all a preset is. It's just going to remember where you left the sliders, and you can apply a preset to your image. Here in the bottom, you can see my presets panel. When I click on that, you can see all the different presets that I have. And under this menu here, this 3-dot icon, you have the create preset button. When you click on that, any settings that you've applied will be saved as your preset. And Lightroom comes with presets already. You have all these different presets that you can just hover over and you can apply the adjustment to your photo. And again, if you're in the light panel, look how as I drag over these presets, the sliders change. See how the sliders are changing? That's all you're really doing with a preset. You're just, you know, adjusting the sliders to the location that the preset has predetermined. So you can just hover over them and find one that you like. Pretty cool stuff, right? Let me see if there's any questions. So we can basically recreate our own brightness files. I'm not really sure what you mean by that, Ramon. What do you mean by brightness files? Let me know and maybe I can answer a question. Cool. Cool. All right, so yeah, looks like there's no other questions in the chat. So let's continue. So yeah, so it's basically what a preset is. You have all these different presets and you can create your own. So why don't we create our own preset for this and we'll apply it to all the other images. So first of all, let me just click on this icon here and I'll reset my photo to original. I'll reset all my edits. That way we start from scratch. And in this case, I want to go for a warm vintage type of feel. So what I'll do is I'll increase the contrast a little bit, maybe reduce the shadow or the highlights, excuse me, and reduce the shadows as well. I will not touch the blacks and whites. By the way, if you forget what a slider controls, you can just hover over it like I just did there, and you'll get an animated preview of what is going on. So if you don't know what a slider controls, just hover over it, wait a second, and you'll get the title for the slider, a little video animation, and a description of what that particular slider does, which is super cool, super helpful if you're just starting out. Also, I have my point curve enabled. If you're seeing something like this that has these segments, click on this little white circle so you can get a regular, I mean, I'm calling it a regular, but they're both, I guess they're both curves, but like a regular curves adjustment layer, or not an adjustment layer, a regular curves, just like the adjustment layer in Photoshop is what I'm trying to say. Sorry, it's Friday morning, guys. So yeah, I'm gonna click and drag on this curve to give it contrast. So I'm gonna create what's known as an S curve. If you click and drag down from the bottom and click and drag up from the top, you'll give the image contrast, and it sort of looks like an S. That's why we call these type of curves S curves, and obviously they can be more dramatic, you know, something like that, but in this case we don't want to do that. I just want to give it just a tiny little bit of contrast. And also what I'm going to do is I don't want black to be my darkest color, so I'm just going to drag up just a tiny little bit, and I'm going to drag down just a tiny little bit because I also don't want pure white. So that is the curve that I'm going to make. You can see the before and the after, and I can collapse this just to keep a little more real estate in the panel so that I can see better. And yeah, is sky replacement in Lightroom? This photo could use it. Sean, good question. No, sky replacement is not in Lightroom. I could take this image into Photoshop, apply sky replacement, and then bring it back. Cool. Ferry, 10 minutes late. No worries, we're here, and even if you miss it, we have the recording. Cool. Let me see if there's any other questions. Awesome. So this is what I've done for the light of the image. I can click on this icon to see the before and the after. Let's work with color now. I'm going to open up the color panel, and I'm just going to increase the temperature to make it warmer. I just want like this warm feel, and maybe add a little bit of magenta as well. Increase the vibrance. Actually, no, I'm going to decrease the vibrance just a tiny little bit like so. Maybe make it warmer now that I've decreased the vibrance. And I'm going to go into the color mixer. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on, first of all, make sure the color is selected so that I can just pick a color, and then I can select the hue, saturation, and luminance of that color. The other options are hue, which is going to give me all the different colors, and all I can adjust is the hue. Then the saturation, and it's going to give me all the colors and everything that the only thing I can adjust is the saturation. then the luminance, and of course the only thing I'll be able to adjust is the luminance with all those colors. I like to use the color better because I can just pick a color and control the hue, saturation, and luminance of that color. And to me that makes more sense when editing, but it might be different for you. Let me know in the comments which one you prefer. I know that the old way of doing it was using the hue, saturation, and luminance tabs, but ever since, I think Lightroom CC was the first one, if I'm not mistaken, that started using this color mode with the different circles and then the 3 sliders below, which I prefer much better. Let me see. Wait, what was the question? Will you recommend Lightroom to convert color images to grayscale to better preserve contrast? The short answer is both editors will give you similar results. The one reason I would recommend Lightroom as opposed to Photoshop is if you're starting with raw images, because if you're starting with raw images, you can take advantage of the profiles, and there's different monochrome profiles that you can use, and that may help you create better black and white images. So that's the one thing that I would recommend. Also, I mean, I guess Lightroom, Camera Raw, I should say, Camera Raw also has that feature, but you know, you're basically working with one image at a time. As for in Lightroom, you have the capability of work faster with more than one raw image at a time. Not to say that Photoshop couldn't do it, but if black and white is your output and you're using you're doing no compositing and you don't need any layers and you're doing a lot of photos, then Lightroom might be the best choice. But in terms of one photo and one, you know, if you're comparing just one photo with one photo, and the adjustments that you can make, they're, you know, virtually the same. In terms of making a black and white image, obviously Photoshop has more capabilities once you start talking about compositing and layers. Cool. So yeah, so these are the different colors that you can select. So what I'm going to do here is select my cool colors, and I'm just going to desaturate my cool colors. I don't want a lot of cool colors to be very noticeable, but I do want my warm colors to be noticeable. So maybe I'll just increase desaturation for the reds, the oranges, and the yellows, and that's just the effect that I'm going for. And again, before and after, I think the image might be a little dark, so I may come back and adjust it a little later on. But first, I'll use the color grading tool. I'm not going to spend too much time explaining the color grading tool because we spent the whole stream yesterday talking about the color grading tool. So if you have questions about it, go back and rewatch yesterday's stream. And in case you don't know how to do that, you can go into the page that I mentioned earlier, behance.net/challenge/Photoshop, and scroll down for the November 19th stream, and you can watch the replay here for color gradients, which is again all about this panel. What I'm going to do is I'm going to add just a little bit of yellow to the shadows and maybe adjust the lightness as well. Add orange to the highlights, and actually I want more yellow in the shadows and more orange on the highlights, like so. And I'll also apply a little bit of yellow to the midtones as well. I just want to create this warm feel. You can see the before and the after, and I can also adjust the luminance of this image, like so. In this case, I don't need to worry too much about the blending or the balance because I use pretty much similar colors throughout the entire image. Basically, different shades of yellow on the 3 color grading. Something else that I could have done, because you're probably wondering, well, couldn't you just have, and I'll reset them just so you could see. Actually, resetting was probably not a good idea, but I'm going to show you anyway. You might be thinking, couldn't you have used the global adjustment and then just applied like an orange or yellow color to it and just do an overall color grade? Yes, I could have done that. But the reason that I decided to go for the single, for the 3-way color wheel rather, is that I could manipulate the luminance separately as well. So the color, sure, it would look great, and I could also do a global luminance to the entire image. But if I wanted to adjust the luminance of a specific region, I have the control of doing that with the 3-way color wheel. So that's why I didn't go for the global color adjustment like you might have been thinking. So again, we talked about that yesterday. A camera raw image is an yes, good description there, Sam. I guess someone asked what a raw image is, and we're talking about compression. Yeah, so for those of you who won't be able to read the chat when this is recorded, a raw image is just an uncompressed image, and a JPEG photo is a compressed photo. So when I say a raw photo, I'm talking about an uncompressed photo that you could have shot with your SLR or with your phone if it has that capability. Cool. Another thing that I'm going to add to this image, and I'm looking at the time, we're almost right out of time. I'm going to go into the effects panel, and I can add a little bit of texture and clarity. Maybe add a little bit of a vignette. If you see these little arrows, or triangles rather, next to the slider, when you click on them, you can see more sliders for different types of controls, so you can adjust the vignette this way. For example, the highlight slider and the vignette slider, for the vignette effect, I should say, allows you to make the vignette a little not as strong in areas where you have highlights. So you see how that we have a big highlight here in the sky. If I drag to the right, then that goes away. So you can adjust this slider so that your vignette doesn't affect the highlights of your image. Cool. And I'm just going to add a little bit of sharpening. If I go to the right, you really can't see what's going on. But if you click on the down pointing arrow and you hold on Alt on Windows, Option in the Mac, it'll desaturate the image, and hopefully you can better see how the contrast is being applied to your image. You can also go into the masking slider, hold Alt on Windows, Option in the Mac, and click and drag over to the right. And basically any area that has white will have the sharpening effect applied to it. But usually you don't want to do an overall sharpening effect. Usually you just want to concentrate on the edge details. So maybe something like this in this case will work. So, and by the way, that was like a layer mask. White reveals, black reveals. So areas with white will have the effect applied to it. Black means hiding, so no effect applied to it. And just because of time, I'm going to just call this good, even though there's probably some adjustments we will need to make, like maybe, I don't know, maybe adjust the exposure a little bit and the shadows a little bit, but we'll just call this good just because we have only a couple minutes. What I'm going to do now is go into the presets panel and click on this icon and create a preset, and I can select what adjustments this will save. See how I have all these adjustments here? And you can click on these arrows to see inside of the category of adjustments. So anything that has a check mark, Lightroom will save within the preset. So I'll just call this one retro. I'll call it warm retro. Warm retro. So this is my warm retro preset. I'll click on save. And now under user presets, you can see my warm retro preset here. And what I'm going to do is go back into my images and, for example, open this one up. And I can go into my edit panel and I can click on presets, and under user presets I have my warm retro, and that will be applied to the image. Now if you're thinking, well, why doesn't it look the same as the other photo? Well, you have to take into account what the original photo looked like, the photo where we applied the effect, compared to the photo that I'm applying it to. It obviously has different colors, different shadows, different highlights, so it's not always going to look the same. But if you notice, every adjustment that we made is still here. The only thing that you would need to do now is maybe come in here and just make a few adjustments so that the image looks like the other image we were working with. Oh, actually, you know what? It looks like I didn't save in my preset. I didn't save the color grade. Very, very interesting. So let me go back in there and see why that happened. I think that the checkbox was not checked. So let's take a look at that. If we go into presets, I'll save another preset just to be sure. So create preset and color. Oh yeah, see, look at that. Color grading, see how that was unchecked? That's why it didn't save the color grading. So I need to check that box to make sure that it saves it, and I'll call it warm color grade. That way I know that this one has the color grade in there. So I'll save it. There it is, warm color grade. And what I'll do now is I'll go and apply it to this photo just to compare it with a different photo. And I need to click on presets and go into my warm color grade, and there it is. That looks much more similar. Again, this image had way too much green, so maybe you would go into the color mixer, go into the greens and adjust the green so that you can, make it look like like the original image that you are working with. If the yellows are too strong or something is too strong, you can always come back and just make a few adjustments. But the point is that you don't have to start from scratch. You can apply a similar color grade to the image. And this is the one thing about presets that I don't think a lot of people understand. You might see a preset online or somebody gives you one, and then when you apply it, you're like, well, this doesn't look like the, like the image that you showed us a preview. And that's because the photo that the person used to create that preset could have had different lighting and different color in the scene. So when you apply it to a photo that has a completely different lighting, completely different color, completely different temperature, then it may not look the same, but you can fine tune those sliders to make it look like what you want it to look like. Let me see if there's any questions in the chat. We only have a couple more minutes. Oh wow, it looks like I missed a lot of comments, but it looks like no questions. Cool. All right, so make sure that you export your file by clicking on this button here, and then you can export one of the JPEGs when you're ready, and you can upload that onto, oh my God, you guys can see my terrible desktop. I have like so much stuff on there, doesn't matter. But you guys can see the Discord page. Again, if you don't know how to get to it, Photoshop, it's in the Photoshop Creative Challenge page, behance.net/challenge/Photoshop. You can click on the community chat, go into the Discord page, click on current challenge, and this is where you can upload your JPEG. You probably know how to do that by now, since this is the last day of this set of daily creative challenges. Also, make sure that you use the hashtag PS Creative Challenge when you upload your projects onto Behance, and you can have an opportunity to be featured on our curated gallery. You can see that here. Also, if you haven't already, feel free to follow me on Behance, behance.net/JR from PTC, behance.net/JR from PTC. And if you want to keep learning in Photoshop, make sure that you click on this icon, which will take you onto my YouTube channel. I post at least one Photoshop video a week, usually more than that, but at least one a week. So you can come and check out my old videos if you haven't caught up on my YouTube channel yet. And yeah, thank you guys so much. It was really fun being with you here. It's always a pleasure doing the Photoshop Daily Creative Challenges. I have a lot of fun. I hope that you guys learned a lot. Let me know in the chat what your favorite Daily Creative Challenge was, what you learned, and hopefully I can come back next year in 2021 and do more Photoshop Daily Creative Challenges with you guys. All right, well, thank you so much, Sam, and I look forward to seeing the Banana Crew again very, very soon. But you can always catch me on my YouTube channel, again, PhotoshopTrainingChannel.com. Make sure that you stick around for the next stream. I'm not sure who's up next, but I know that Claudia's also doing a Illustrator Daily Creative Challenge at 11:30 a.m. Pacific. All right, everybody, thank you so much. It was awesome, and I hope to see you guys again soon. Bye, Banana Crew. See you.